Hey all you out there, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callum and once again this is your nerd culture capital. Before I begin, I just wanted to give a big thank you to all of you for the support on the first video. Because we're a growing channel, every view, every comment, every like and every share goes a really long way. Now, on to today's video. And I'm going to be doing what a lot of channels exactly like this one have done 1,000 times. And that's taking one fandom and trying to smush it, ill-fitting jigsaw piece style, into another one. By that I mean, I'm going to be taking characters from the US version of The Office and trying to put them into Hogwarts Houses. Now of course, all of these choices are just my opinion and I don't expect you to agree with me. But I'll explain why I've put everyone in the houses I've put them in, and hopefully you'll understand why I did that. And here's how this is going to work as well. I'm going to go house by house, highlighting any of the important characters and any of the characters I found interesting to sort. And then afterwards, in a sort of honourable mention kind of style, I'll go through some of the side characters and briefly just explain which house I put each of them in. Now with all that being said, let's dust off that sorting hat and start the ceremony. Okay, so starting off with the Gryffindors, and I'm going to go with one of the main cast here, and I'm going with Pam. Now Pam, a lot of you might think, is a bit of a Hufflepuff, and I think she is, especially at the beginning. I think she might have been a bit of a hat stall, to be honest with you. But I think just like Neville Longbottom, the hat would have been able to see the real courage that is underneath. In the episode where she walks across coals, you see that Pam really has a lot of gut and a lot of courage, and I think that is what would make her a true Gryffindor. The rest of the Gryffindors gave me a bit of trouble, and you'll see that from my next pick. Creed, I think, is a Gryffindor. Now I think you might be wondering why I haven't put him in Slytherin, but let's be honest, he's not exactly cunning. Maybe he's a little bit resourceful, but he's certainly not a leader. I think he's a Gryffindor because he's gutsy, he's got a lot of courage to do what he does and to say what he says in front of people. And that's why I think he's a Gryffindor, mostly because he doesn't really fit anywhere else. Next person taking a bed in the Gryffindor dormitories is Meredith. Now I think, again, Meredith is a bit like Creed and doesn't really fit into a lot of other categories. She's certainly not a Ravenclaw, certainly not a Hufflepuff. And maybe I guess you could say that she's a Slytherin, but I think that the courage that she has being a single mother really puts her in Gryffindor. Next up is another difficult one, and I've put Kelly in Gryffindor. Kelly's another one that I think doesn't really fit in a lot of other houses. She's certainly not book smart, she's certainly not loyal, and I don't think she's particularly resourceful either. However, I think this should be a good fit for Gryffindor. She's bold and she speaks her mind quite often, even if that is a detriment to her, and I think that sort of rush-in mentality is very Gryffindor. So the last of the main cast that belong in Gryffindor, and I'm going with Stanley. Now I know what you're thinking, Stanley is a textbook Hufflepuff, but I think there is one key reason why he does not belong in the Yellow House, and that's his lack of loyalty, both to his partners and to the company of Dunder Mifflin. I think because of this, he has to be in Gryffindor, because he doesn't really fit Slytherin or Ravenclaw at all. Next up is the house that I've put the least people from the main cast into, and that's Ravenclaw. And starting off, I'm going with probably the most obvious, Oscar. Now Oscar's a very smart man, he's very studious, and as you can see from the trivia night where he absolutely aces it, of course he belongs in Ravenclaw. Next up, and my only other choice from the main cast, Toby. I think Toby is definitely a Ravenclaw. He's often the smartest person in the room, even if he doesn't show it all the time. He's also very witty. You see from a lot of his asides to camera that he's so smart, so clever, and very funny. I think he's very much a Ravenclaw, especially because nowhere else really fits in. I guess you could say Hufflepuff, but my choice is Ravenclaw. Moving on now to Hufflepuff, and I'm going to start off with the big boss himself, Michael Scott. Now I think Michael is definitely a Hufflepuff. He's very loyal to his friends, very loyal to the company. You can see from a lot of episodes that he is an extremely hard worker and a very good salesman. He has a strong sense of justice as well and a lot of patience for the people around him. I think Michael's definitely a Hufflepuff, although he does have a few Slytherin tendencies. A lot of the characters do. Next up is another interesting one, and I'm going with Andy for Hufflepuff. Now the interesting thing about him is I think a lot of his family might belong in Slytherin. However, I think that in true Andy fashion, he'll be a bit of a disappointment to his family, and when he's sorted into Hufflepuff, he'll kind of be disowned. I think it's a good choice for him though. He's very loyal, he's very loving to all the people around him. He can be a bit of a Slytherin though. He's definitely a bit cunning, definitely a bit mischievous, but I think he's a Hufflepuff, deep down. Next up for the Hufflepuffs is Kevin, and I mean, come on, Kevin, he's a Hufflepuff. I know that a lot of people think he's a Slytherin because they think he's doing some sort of insider trading, but he's a Hufflepuff. Phyllis is the next of the Hufflepuffs, and I think it's quite an obvious choice, but it is also the best choice for her. She's very loving and caring to the people around her. She can be a bit manipulative, which made me hedge a little bit towards Slytherin, but I think she's a Hufflepuff. She's very loyal, she's very patient, and she's very hardworking. And finally, Erin. Now I think Erin is definitely a Hufflepuff, mostly because she definitely doesn't belong anywhere else. She's certainly not book smart, she's not particularly courageous, and she's not very cunning either. I think she's a Hufflepuff though because she's a very loyal person, sometimes to a fault. She's not particularly hardworking, although she does try her best a lot of the time, and I think that's what makes her a Hufflepuff. She's a Hufflepuff at heart at the end of the day. Now for the Slytherins, and I know what you're thinking, I haven't come to Jim yet. And you're right, I haven't, but I think Jim is a Slytherin. A lot of you might think he's a Gryffindor because he's sort of the main character and he's kind of the hero that we're all supposed to be rooting for. But let's be honest, Jim's pranks, the way that he's just manipulative of Dwight and the people around him, and Michael especially, I think he's definitely a Slytherin. Very ambitious, he's a good leader as well, and particularly resourceful. Jim fits Slytherin very well. Next up is another easy one, and I'm going to go with Angela. Of course Angela's a Slytherin. I mean, just look at her, she looks like a Malfoy. Also, she's extremely manipulative, especially of Dwight. She can basically bend him completely to her will. Not only that, she's a bit vindictive and just generally, I don't know, she's Slytherin-y. Speaking of Dwight, he's next up on the list of Slytherins. Now I think Dwight is definitely a textbook Slytherin. Although he is quite courageous and he does have a strong sense of justice, you cannot deny that he's extremely resourceful, extremely ambitious, and definitely he's a very good leader as well. I think Dwight is definitely a Slytherin. Next up, it's Ryan. Of course Ryan's a Slytherin. I mean, just look at that ambition. Look at the entire arc when he went up to head office. That ambition, that cunning, and that just evilness puts him in Slytherin. And I mean no disrespect to any Slytherins out there, I know you're not all evil. Last up of the main cast, and probably the most difficult of them to sort, is Daryl. Now the difficult thing about Daryl is that he shares a lot of the traits of a lot of the houses. He's definitely loyal to his friends, although not to his company. I think Hufflepuff is definitely the worst fit for him. He could be a Ravenclaw, he's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of wit, and there is definitely some intelligence there. And then Gryffindor. Gryffindor, of course, he's courageous, he's bold. But again, he's a little bit standoffish, and sometimes he doesn't stand up for what he believes in. I think though Slytherin fits him quite well. He's certainly got ambition. He wants to be the manager, he definitely wants to be out of the warehouse. He's also a little bit cunning, the way that he manipulates people, especially the way that he manipulates Val into trying to break up with him. I think mostly though, is his leadership that puts him in Slytherin. He's led the warehouse for many years, and that's what puts him up into management roles, and that's what puts him in the debate for the full-on manager role of Dunder Mifflin. I think that he's a great choice for Slytherin, but I would happily agree with any of you if you put him anywhere else. Now with the main cast done, onto my honourable mentions, which are a few side characters that I think deserve to be sorted. Now I think these will probably be the most debatable of the bunch. Feel free to debate me in the comments. I'm sure that I've got a lot of them wrong in your opinion, but this is just what I think. Starting off, Roy is a Gryffindor. Jan is a Slytherin. David Wallace is a Ravenclaw. Charles is also a Ravenclaw. Packer's definitely a Slytherin. Mose is debatably a Hufflepuff. Joe Bennett is a Slytherin. Holly is a Ravenclaw, but she's definitely got some Hufflepuff tendencies. That's what makes her a match for Michael. Pete and Clark, both Hufflepuffs. Gabe is a Ravenclaw, but he definitely wants to be a Slytherin. And then Nellie, she's also a Slytherin. Karen is a Ravenclaw, but she could be a few different ones. And Robert California is 100% Slytherin. Okay, that's everyone. Or at least everyone who I think is worth mentioning. If you disagree with any of my decisions, please let me know in the comments. I'd really love to know what you guys think. Also don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. And until next time, mischief